Hi, everyone. We're so glad you joined us for another edition of the Lympha Press Educational Webinar Series. Our guest speaker tonight is Kathleen Lisson, and I had to book her for this because I picked up her new book, which captivated me and intrigued me personally and professionally. Mindful Strategies for Adult Clients with Adverse Childhood Experiences. We know that you are logging on right now. We welcome you. We're so glad you gave an hour out of your time tonight to be with us. We want you to let us know you're here, so say hello in chat. Put your questions in the Q&A and we will definitely address them at the end. Bottom line, adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, are potentially traumatic events that occur in childhood that can result in toxic stress. And when the body's stress response stays activated over a long period of time, the results are increased inflammation and hormone disruption. Now, we know that we have both patients and clinicians that are logging on tonight. We welcome your questions and your comments, no matter who you are, but we do know that those of us that work with patients with lymphedema and lipedema are dealing with hormonal issues and they're dealing with inflammation. So there's a whole lot to unpack here, and I don't want to take any more time except to say that Kathleen Lisson is one of our favorite speakers that we have in this educational webinar series. She is board certified in therapeutic massage. She's a certified lymphedema therapist, an avid writer, an avid researcher. She says her favorite thing is reading what's the latest thing on PubMed and connecting the dots to help patients. One thing that I truly admire about her is her patient care, her advocacy for people, and the way her humanity shines through in everything that she does. There's so much more to her resume that I could say, but I'm going to be quiet because we want to get on with this presentation. And while you're putting up your presentation, I want to say that people are already in chat saying your book is excellent. Michelle Sanderson has mentioned that. Catherine Pryor's out there. She is in Massachusetts. We have Idaho, I believe, or Indiana. I'm not sure there. Linda Ann Kahn is out there, one of the authors of the Standard of Care for Lipedema in the United States. Lisa Lugo, one of my most favorite patients of all time and a Lympha Press user. Idaho, thank you for correcting me there. Whoever you are, we're glad you're here. And now I'm going to disappear and say, take it away, Kathleen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So when Brenda and I talked about this earlier this year, my concept was to have like a pump and learn. So if you are here today, I love that you jumped in your Lympha Press pump, or if you're watching this on YouTube, definitely jump in your pump, and we're going to practice some breathing exercises and we're going to learn something. So today we're going to learn about adverse childhood experiences, toxic stress, and chronic disease. So who am I? Brenda talked about it, but what I'm most proud of is that I'm a lymphedema therapist, and I also have training as a meditation teacher and a labyrinth facilitator. And we did talk about my book. I'm the author of Mindfulness Strategies for Adult Clients with Adverse Childhood Experiences. So like I'm on my couch, you're on your couch. Let's learn about this together. So we're going to look at describing what are adverse childhood experiences, to describe the different types of stress we can experience as human beings. And then I'm going to demonstrate some stress reduction skills to kind of get you going in the right direction. So first, let's tackle a really difficult topic, one that's been extremely well researched and one that was really first noted and spoken about in San Diego. So I'm here from San Diego talking to you tonight, and that's why this is really close to my heart. So adverse childhood experiences are experiences that happen to a child under 18 that include physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical and emotional neglect, domestic violence in the household, addiction and substance abuse of a member of the household, mental illness of a member of the household, incarceration of a member of a household, and divorce or parental separation. So what is the difference between people who have had adverse childhood experiences and have flourished and people that have symptoms and illnesses in adulthood? And that has to do with how they handled those experiences. So this leads perfectly into me talking about the different types of stress. So the positive stress response, we all have stress, and stress isn't bad. Is positive stress is actually good. This is what makes us learn and grow. This is the type of stress like I had as I'm preparing this presentation to talk to you as a child would have before an important game or an important test, learning and practicing something new. So a positive stress response is our body's normal stress response, is essential for growth and development. These stresses are short-lived, they're mild, and they don't happen all day, every day. And very importantly, the person is supported through this stressful event. So they have the coach, they have their teammates, they have their classmates, they have their teacher, they have their loved ones at home, and also adults that are helping them and in their corner and cheering them on. And this type of stress results in increased motivation and resilience. Very important to see that, like, positive stress as a child helps us to build resilience. And the biochemical is that there's biochemical reactions in the body. When we're in fight or flight, we have those different chemicals that are secreted, but they occur with a stressful event and they return to the baseline afterwards. So we feel the butterflies, we feel the adrenaline, but then we calm afterwards. Tolerable stress. So this is a little bit closer to toxic stress, but it's not there. The response to a situation, it's a severe, frequent, or sustained stressor in our life, but the person is still protected with responsive relationships. They still have strong social and emotional support. So we can get through some very difficult things in our life and be able to bounce forward instead of back if we have these responsive relationships. But the biochemical responses, if we have more ongoing stress, they do have the potential to negatively affect brain architecture. But these biochemical reactions occur with a stressful event. But again, intolerable stress will be able to return to baseline afterwards. And then this is the real difficulty. This is what people are experiencing when they have adverse childhood experiences, and they're not mitigated by that adult, by the support system. So this is the prolonged activation of the stress response. There's a lack of support, lack of reassurance, lack of emotional attachments that goes on with experiencing this stress. So the body, it fails to recover fully from this stress, and that results in increased vulnerability to maladaptive health outcomes. So what's the difference specifically in the body between tolerable and toxic stress? The tolerable stress response activates the body's alert system, so we get into that fight or flight. And it can be longer lasting difficulties like the loss of a loved one, a natural disaster, a frightening injury can all cause this tolerable stress. But if the activation is time limited, so it's short, it's not ongoing, and it's buffered by the relationships with adults that it help the child to adapt, then the child's brain and other organs are going to recover from what might otherwise be damaging effects to them. So the toxic stress, on the other hand, strong, frequent, prolonged adversity, such as the ACEs that we talked about in the earlier slides, and there's not adequate adult support. And what happens at the end of that is disruption of brain architecture and organ systems, increases the risk for stress-related diseases and cognitive impairment well into the adult years. And I'll have more specific about those two types of disease later on in another slide for you to look at. So basically, what is toxic stress happening in the body? It's a prolonged or permanent abnormal psychological response to a stressor, and the risk is, and it's organ dysfunction. So the stress really can have an effect on your body. It's not just something that you'll grow out of, or it's okay, or don't worry about it. It's really something that we have to take to heart. And if we're dealing with chronic illness, it's something we can look at. And if we're a lymphedema therapist like I am, and we're helping people with chronic illness, this is something that we should look at too. What happened to our patients when they were children? So people love to know about the chemicals. So what happens to the body during toxic stress? Cortisol activation, persistent inflammatory state. Brenda and I were talking about inflammatory states before we hit record on the webinar. And basically the body is failing to normalize these changes after the stressor is removed. So a stressful situation, and instead of once the stressful situation is over, then the body can return to homeostasis. The body is not returning to homeostasis. And what happens long-term for that? Maladaptive coping skills, poor stress management, unhealthy lifestyles, mental illness, and physical disease. So this is, I read a lot about adverse childhood experiences, read the initial study that happened with the Kaiser Permanente Health System here in San Diego. But it wasn't really until I read JAMA Neurology that I said, you know what, this is like kind of escaped the bounds of the people who know, and now it's kind of like across disciplines, people are seeing and noting and giving truth out to the fact that adverse childhood experiences cause mental and physical impairments in adulthood. So JAMA Neurology is a monthly peer-reviewed medical journal. It's published by the American Medical Association. And they said ACEs are associated in a dose-dependent way with over 60 mental and physical health outcomes and premature death, including many of the leading causes of death: heart disease, cancer, unintentional injuries, stroke, chronic lower respiratory disease, diabetes, kidney disease, and suicide. ACEs are also associated with common neurological and neuropsychiatric conditions, including dementia, memory impairment, epilepsy or seizure disorder, ADHD, and headaches, and including sleep disturbance, developmental delay, learning or behavioral problems, autism spectrum disorders, mood disorders, PTSD, and chronic pain. And this is not me telling you, this is JAMA Neurology saying it. And I will have the links to this afterwards so you can read the entire study. So basically, all these slides were to get the point across that your childhood is important. It's not something that you should let people tell you that it's not important. Your feelings are important. Your childhood experiences were important. They were a part of what makes you who you are today. So why exactly in the brain does this happen? Babies are not born, we're not born with fully developed nervous systems. So when we're developing as small infants, small children, this structural development is going to be guided by cues from the environment. So what the child is seeing is going to impact how its nervous system and its structural development in the brain happens. Exposure to toxic stress kind of shows the body that it needs to develop a prolonged activation of its stress response mechanisms, because that's the life that the child was born in. And this will disrupt the development of the brain and other organs. And long-term result is the increase in stress-related disease and cognitive impairment. So what can we do? Basically, this is everywhere. Talking about mental health is everywhere. Lympha Press has done a really, really amazing job in the past couple months, really putting it to the front burner and getting us as medical professionals to have conversations about it. but I want to give you some tools that you can use to daily reduce your stress as an adult, especially if you've had adverse childhood experiences, but even if you haven't. In this pandemic time, we all need techniques that we can kind of drop into our day to reduce our overall stress, to get us to within the window of tolerance, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. So I want to start talking about resilience, and I want to let you know that my colleague Karen Ashforth, when she looked at these slides, she reminded me that, hey, learning resilience begins in childhood. This is something that you will teach children how to handle their feelings, how to make good choices, how to communicate and use your words as children. So if you did not get this training as a child, this is something you can parent yourself with and learn resilience skills as an adult or whatever point you are in your life. So resilience is the ability to think clearly. It's the ability to make intentional choices, communicate and connect with others, be able to connect with others, to partner with others during stressful situations. And I love what Karen Ashforth said, because that's some of the questions that we can ask ourselves. Did you learn that your feelings were okay as a child? Was it okay as a child to ask for something that you needed? And when your feelings are stirred up now and when you're a child, how did you help? What is your go-to technique to handle big feelings when you have big feelings? So one thing that we can all get behind is that a healthy lifestyle, including some of the things you see in this wonderful design, can definitely help you. I can pick so many things out that are really good for people with lymphedema. And we talked to you about exercise. We talked to you about a healthy diet. We talked about getting enough sleep, stress reduction practices, getting exercise. And I love that, like right in the middle, you can see the pool with the stairway into the pool. And we really love pool exercise. Another thing that can help is meditation. So I will preface this by saying being able to sit with yourself in silence is a very advanced practice. If you try it and it's extremely uncomfortable, I would highly recommend that you get a meditation teacher to go with you on this journey. Some people have better results just using the apps, and a lot of people will say, you know what, I didn't like it. It just isn't for me. And that's a signal that you might need a meditation teacher or a sangha, like a community group to practice within. And if it's extremely difficult, that may be a sign that your body is telling you, hey, like maybe we should talk to a mental health professional. And I want to take the stigma away from speaking to a mental health professional. This is, if you need it, it is what is going to help you get to the next level with all different types of goals in your life, including helping your chronic illness. So it's definitely amazing resource that is out there for you. So this is a study of the effects of meditation on gene expression and epigenetics. And it's very interesting to me that there's so many different gene targets that different scientists are looking at, and these same gene targets are affected by us as humans spending time mindfully, spending time in meditation. So it suggests that the achievement of a state of inner silence through meditation can prevent or reverse the detrimental effects of a stressful environment. Inner silence can be a powerful tool to counteract the negative effects of overabundant environmental noise because it can reduce and relieve stress-related symptoms. But again, this is an advanced practice. And if it's not fairly easy for you to slip into it, I would recommend seeking out a teacher. And Karen Ashforth let me know that she sometimes when her clients don't find sitting and having silence while still comfortable practice, you can also see if some kind of mindful movement would help you, whether that's walking the labyrinth or a walking meditation. Sometimes that's an easier way to get into this place of silence in ourselves. So why should we share as lymphedema therapists these interventions with our clients? And I liken it to why do we use padding or an open cell foam under bandages when we bandage a client? Why don't we just, use those short stretch bandages without any padding? And it's because the padding, like these stress reduction techniques, they're going to even out the pressure on our clients' lives. They're going to protect the delicate parts of our client from too much pressure being applied. And then they're going to fill in some of the depressions in the skin, in the body, so that our clients are receiving a more equal and proper pressure on them. So that is, if you're kind of reticent to look into it more, think of it every time you use some like 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch gray foam. And I hope the foam will speak to you and be like, tell her about stress reduction. And it's so, there's definitely an opening in every session for us to begin talking about it, because stress reduction, like deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, is at the beginning of every single MLD session we do with our client. We're having them take multiple deep breaths as we're doing that deep abdominal work. So this is a time where I say, like, hey, how did that feel? Do you feel more peaceful? After that, is diaphragmatic breathing that we just did something you'd like to incorporate more in your life? And then as we're starting with the pumping, as clients, we want you to do diaphragmatic breathing before you get into your pump or before you do your self MLD or any kind of lymphatic focused work. It's a time and a space for us to make it not just about moving through the thoracic duct, but also can we also do this deep diaphragmatic breathing as stress reduction practice? So I want to talk about grounding exercises. So grounding exercises can help cushion the mind and the body from the effects of hyperarousal, which is being everywhere on all the time, and then hypoarousal, dissociation, kind of like being checked out, not feeling or anything, or like losing track of time, losing track of your keys because you were somewhere else. And they'll bring us back inside the window of tolerance. So the window of tolerance is a concept originally developed by Dr. Siegel. And this describes the optimal zone of arousal. So not too aroused, but like not checked out and not aroused at all. And inside this zone, it's really, it's easier for us to make good decisions, function in life, achieve our goals, have the proper amount of motivation. And it really is, I'd invite you to pay attention and experiment with this and see if you see this in your life too. Like when you're too over here and hyper-aroused, it's hard to achieve your goals. It's hard to make decisions. It's hard to have a quality conversation. And also like when you're checked out and you're like losing track of time, it's also difficult to participate in daily life. So what are some mindfulness interventions that can help us keep us in this window or this zone of tolerance? I like to first talk about grounding techniques that utilize our senses. And I've spoken about this before. So if you listen to other webinars that you'll find on my website, you can definitely see me expound upon this. But like we can use the sense of sight. If we find ourselves like too hyper aroused or too hypo aroused, look around at your environment. And an interesting thing to do would be to pick out the different colors. Can I find something that's red? Can I find something that's yellow? Can I find something that's orange? And this just allows us to take a break and refocus into our body and the present moment, hearing things in the environment, trying to hear different things, multiple things at the same time, also allows us to enter back into our bodies in the present moment, feeling something. We can feel the feeling of our clothing. We can feel the couch or something we're sitting on. Smelling, if you have essential oils that you like to smell, and also feeling the weight of your body on the chair, and also tasting, like if you have like a little mint that you can taste, it kind of brings you back into that zone of tolerance. So what are some other things that we can do? I'm going to lead us through the 4-7-8 practice. It's begun. I feel like, Brenda, I feel like it's my signature practice now. I love 4-7-8 breathing. So I'm going to invite you to practice with us together. So basically we're going to inhale for a count of 4, hold our breath for a count of 7, and exhale for a count of 8. We're going to do it 3 times, and I'll keep the time. Note how you're feeling right now, and then I'll have you see what you noticed about the practice afterwards. So go ahead and inhale, hold, and exhale. Inhale, hold, and exhale. Last one, inhale, hold, and exhale. Okay, so go back to breathing normally. What did you notice about that practice? How did anything change in your emotions, or how you're paying attention, or how you feel in your body? This is a really great practice that you can use anytime, because if you learn how to count yourself, you can be even in the middle of a stressful conversation where the person is just having a very emotional moment and sharing things with you. And then you can do this practice. No one notices you're doing it, but you're able to regulate yourself into this window of tolerance where you can actually help them and give them a better answer. Another ways that we can kind of drop this in, both as a therapist and as anybody, is the stop technique. So I said we can set off by something at work, but it can definitely also be, you know, any stressful situation in the car on your way home, in the family situation, at the mall, trying to Christmas shop next month. So the stop technique is created by Jon Kabat-Zinn from Massachusetts. And this is kind of to get us off of autopilot, to give us that moment to take a deep breath and take a step, stand in our own feet and just focus on the situation for a moment, like 20-30 seconds before we respond to somebody. So whenever you feel like your emotions are kind of brimming up, I'd invite you to stop. We're just going to stop what we're doing for just a moment and take a breath and pay attention to your body as you're taking the next breath. And as you breathe in and out, observe, what are your current feelings and emotions? Are there any notable physical sensations in your body? Like, oh, you know, like this is really, I feel myself crunching up, or I feel my stomach's twisted and hurting, or I feel like I'm starting to get a headache. We don't need to change or judge everything. We're just observing them. We're just giving ourselves a moment to feel inside of our body. And then we move forward, we proceed, we return to what we're doing before. And this stop technique, I'd like to say you can use it to like stop if you feel like you're about to react to something instead of respond to it, but also like stop and smell the roses. If you feel like this is a beautiful situation, like if you're at Thanksgiving dinner and you just see everyone gathered around and you feel like, you know, these times with loved ones are too short, and you can just stop, sit at that table and look around at everyone, take a breath and feel, you know, how beautiful your heart is open and you feel like you're with the people you love the most. And then just breathe in and out and proceed with an increased sense of gratitude. And it doesn't have to be Thanksgiving. It can be in the morning when the sun is shining on your face. You can do this practice. So I'll lead us in a self-soothing touch. This is definitely something that we can do and something that you can share as lymphedema therapists or other medical professionals with your clients when they're sharing something really difficult with you. So I'll invite you to put the hand on your heart and move it around a little bit in a soothing motion, whatever motion is soothing for you, for 2 to 3 breaths. And just repeat gently to yourself. It can be in a whisper or just in your mind. This is hard, but it won't be like this forever. And I'll just have you take one more breath. This is hard, but it won't be like this forever. Okay, you can go back to breathing normally. And you can keep your hand on your heart if you want. I kind of like the feeling of my hand on my heart. So this study was done, and the researchers concluded that self-soothing touch, what we just practiced, may not only be an effective option to reduce the effects of the stress resulting from the pandemic, but for many, it may be the only option, because so many times when we would hug people or be close to people in community, you have to stay 6 feet away from people. And many people don't want hugs, or they don't even do handshakes anymore. So we're not getting as much outside touch as we used to. So this self-soothing touch can really help. So what else can we do? I am so excited. This is a picture of my mother-in-law. Her name's Tankemani. She lives in India. And I asked her to take a picture with her Bible, because she and my father-in-law are very devout Christians. They are really, they go to church all the time. They sing in the choir. And when there was a health situation in the family, they really leaned on their faith to get them through it. So I'd like to invite you, if you have a chronic illness or if you're a healthcare practitioner, think about how we can utilize a community support system. So here are some ideas. Can we collaborate with a religious leader to have the bandages, or have the pump, or have the garments to be blessed? Can you be placed on the prayer list at your house of worship, and just knowing that other people, your loved ones, the people in your religious community are praying for you? Can you listen to religious content or say prayers while participating in your self-care, whether it's getting in your pump or doing your self-MLD, or, lotion or skincare or exercise? And I'm Roman Catholic, so I just knew growing up that the rosary videos, we didn't have them on YouTube. We had to say the rosary by ourselves. But now they will have religious videos on YouTube that are about 20, 30 minutes long. Could these be incorporated? Could they help someone to be more consistent in their self-care if they knew that they were also be able to be spiritual during the process? Okay, so what if you just can't sit still and just breathe? I totally get it. So there's also research on combining yoga and stretching and breath work. So this research study took hypertensive postmenopausal women and had them do twice a week video classes, and it was either yoga or stretching. Stretching is the control group, and the active groups were either yoga and breath work or stretching and breath work. And what did they find? Yoga poses and stretching improved blood pressure, endothelial function, oxidative stress profiles in the hypertensive postmenopausal women. And interestingly, it was the respiratory technique, like how they were breathing, along with the yoga poses, that may have gained a possible improvement in the arterial stiffness, levels of arterial stiffness. So that's interesting. Yoga has some specific breathing techniques that they teach you. So that would be definitely something to look at. And then another study also said that increased venous return due to diaphragmatic breathing has been demonstrated in healthy individuals. So the diaphragmatic breathing is helping the venous return from our body. So what about chronic disease? And let me go here because I scooched this up. I have a toy that I'll show you a little bit later. So let's talk about chronic disease. Nearly half of the adults in the United States have hypertension. And that's, here's the statistics on hypertension. And this is something that you will get your blood pressure tested at the doctor's office, and then they will give a diagnosis. But only about 1 or 4 adults with hypertension have their condition under control. And then half of adults who have uncontrolled hypertension have a more serious level of that blood pressure of 140/90 or higher. That's 37 million US adults. So studies have suggested, so why is it important? It's always important to get your blood pressure down, but why is it especially important if you also have lymphatic difficulties, lymphatic dysfunctions? Studies suggest that the lymphatic system is implicated in the pathogenesis of cardiovascular disease, lymphedema, inflammation, atherosclerosis, and myocardial infarction. But they haven't really known the linkage between the lymphatic system and pathogenesis of hypertension remained unclear. But this study said in rats that contractile activity of lymphatic vessels is functionally impaired with the developing of increasing blood pressure. So that's why it's really important. It's really important for us to focus on decreasing and keeping that healthy blood pressure. So they had a HEAL study, health, eating, activity, and lifestyle study, and they followed a cohort of breast cancer survivors for 10 years. And they found that hypertension was associated with increased risk of lymphedema after adjusting for BMI. And that contradicts some earlier studies where no association between hypertension and lymphedema was found. So how are they linked? A possible mechanism by which hypertension increases the risk is because when you have hypertension, you have increased capillary filtration because you have elevated hydrostatic pressure. So when your capillary filtration increases, more fluid is going out of the capillaries, but your lymphatic system doesn't have that power to drain all that fluid effectively. That fluid is going to accumulate in the interstitial space and lead to swelling of the arm. And then they also really interestingly found, so this study was in 2014, they showed that hypertension increased the risk of lymphedema among Black women, but not other women. And I'd just like to point out that we did have a change in our hypertension guidelines in 2017. They used to be higher, and now we set the threshold a little bit lower. So I'd be really interested in an update of this study, which is 8 years old, to see if hypertension is increasing the risk of lymphedema among more types of women. So the good thing is that we practice slow breathing, and we spoke about hypertension before in our last presentation. So that video is on the Lympha Press YouTube page. Definitely check out that page. It's a great wealth of information, and all my favorite people are on there. So what else, what can we do to reduce hypertension? Are home-based exercises effective to reduce the blood pressure? And among respiratory exercises, yoga, controlled breathing with and without loading, and guided breathing have demonstrated anti-hypertensive effects. So we're seeing yoga again, we're seeing more information on controlled breathing. So yoga and breathing would be something I would ask the lymphedema therapist more information about to see if that's right for you. Controlled guided breathing has been considered for patients who cannot obtain full control of their hypertension or can't tolerate the adverse effects of their hypertension medications. And it is definitely recommended for pre-hypertensive or mildly hypertensive individuals that can try to replace a drug prescription. Obviously, this is under your physician's guidance, but definitely talk to your doctor about controlled guided breathing to see if that could help your hypertensive or pre-hypertensive symptoms. And then this is this interesting, let's see if I can, so it goes in the mouth like this. So this is an interesting study on time-efficient inspiratory muscle strength training. And it has been found to lower blood pressure, improve endothelial function, nitrous oxide bioavailability, and oxidative stress levels in midlife and older adults with above normal blood pressure. So this is, it's a really interesting, this Craig's head study is really interesting study. And this may be something, if you're concerned about this, to speak to your physician about it and see if one of these machines, it's just a tiny device, would be right for you. So it exercises the lungs. So definitely this is not something I would say just buy it and try it. Definitely talk about it with your physician. But this is a way that you can strengthen the lungs, especially if intense exercise is difficult for you. So let's talk a little bit about autoimmune disorders. Stress reduction interventions have a positive therapeutic effects in autoimmune disease patients. And we need to recognize the potential for stress to impact autoimmune diseases, and stress management should be part of the multidimensional treatment approach for autoimmune diseases. Okay, so that concludes my talk. Basically, my big ideas that I want to share with you, that the stress from adverse childhood experiences can affect health in adulthood. Hypertension can affect our lymphatic system, which was huge to find that out for me this year. And that stress reduction skills can help us reduce the effects of stressors on the body and the mind. And as you can see, our lovely, long-suffering mom here, you know, the kids are going to run around in circles around you, and you're still going to have to be on the computer trying to do something while the kids run circles around you. But stress reduction skills can help us reduce the effects of stressors on the body and the mind. And here are my slides, and thank you so much.
Oh my, thank you, Kathleen, for that really research-packed, enlightening presentation. We're getting so many thank yous in chat, and I invite everybody who has questions to please put them in the Q&A. I have a few of my own, and in fact, within one of your first few slides, we had a question from someone saying, can she say that again? And I believe it was about the difference between tolerable and toxic stress. And
yeah, so like a tolerable stress. So when I was 4 years old, there was a giant blizzard in Buffalo, New York, which is why I am a California girl. So that's like a tolerable stress, like someone undergoing a serious health crisis. And what's the difference between tolerable and toxic is, did you have support? Was it time limited? So the blizzard happened, but you know, we were able to dig out, and then my mom put her foot down and we moved. But you know, it didn't last every day for the rest of our life. Every day for a long period of time is toxic stress. Every day for a long period of time, there's no way for your body to return to baseline. So you're always stressed. You're never getting out of fight and flight, and you don't have that support system. That's what's so important. That's what Lympha Press does so well. There's supportive environment here. You can go to a lipedema roundtable. You can go to the lymphedema roundtable. You can find your online support system and find your, like I was talking about, religious. If your client is religious, find and utilize that support system. Have your friends that you talk about, and there's online support groups of people. And I know it's so, when you have a chronic illness, people without a chronic illness really don't understand. Like, they may love you, but they don't understand what you're going with. Same if you're a caregiver to somebody. People who are not a caregiver to somebody with a chronic or terminal disease will never understand what you're going with. But we have online groups, and you can find your community of people that do understand.
Thank you. And thank you for mentioning our commitment at Lympha Press. It is unique, and I'm inspired by my team that doesn't just want to put a pump on a patient, but also sees the whole person. And how can we support that whole person? And how can we support the clinicians that we work with as well? Someone asked in chat about resources. We worked with NAMI, and we have pages on our website with
Yes.
a host of resources for both clinicians and patients to help support you with any mental health challenges. Carolyn Smith Kaiser wants to know, will the slides be available? I will say this, we are recording today's presentation. Everybody who registered will receive the recording, so you can see the slides again in that. I don't know if you have a policy about actually sharing slides, so I want to be respectful to that, Kathleen.
Yep, I learned this from Karen Ashforth too, because she has a website and you can see her slides. So now I made a website and you'll be able to see. So check on it a little bit later this week. I'm going to NLN in Cleveland next week. So my schedule is like everything's up in the air, but I will endeavor to get the slides up there, and you can see the slides of all my past presentations on stress reduction there. Yeah, and you can see I have links to the past Lympha Press webinars I did, and they're also on the Lympha Press website.
That's awesome. And you had also given me a link to grab earlier, the caregiver.va.gov. So I just stuck that in chat as well. That is specifically for self-care assessments.
Yeah, so this is great information if you're a VA caregiver, but you don't have to, internet is free. Like, you don't have to be a caregiver to understand many of the things. When I read that, my heart opened, because that's a lot of experience. A lot of people with chronic illnesses are their own caregivers. You may or may not have another caregiver, but you have to do self-care every day, and you are your own caregiver. So I would have you reach out to that website and look at it and see how much of it applies to you.
Something you said really struck me, and it was 2 words: parent yourself. So, you know, I don't know anybody who has had the perfect childhood with perfect parents, and it's not too late to take care of whatever that was that you lacked. Can you expand on that just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has to, it starts with self-awareness. I think the big thing is it starts with self-awareness, and then it's up to you if there's some forgiveness, but there should definitely be forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness of that little girl, that she did what she had to do to protect herself in the situation that she was in, whether that's people pleasing, whether that's putting other people before herself. But now you're the big sister, you're the adult, you're able to hold her hand and say, I'm going to stand in my own power right now, and I can make different choices.
I think that is really a powerful concept. And I found recently, as I was going through old photos and seeing photos of me as a little girl, it evoked some compassion that I had never realized before that I needed.
Yeah.
Someone, Rissa Scott, thank you for being with us tonight. Rissa says that a great book that focuses on this concept of parenting yourself is called Homecoming. So thank you for that recommendation. And I could talk to you all night about this, but I have one other question. Tears. I feel like the healthier I get, the more I cry. Can you speak to tears? And why do we sometimes feel so ashamed that we find ourselves crying?
Yeah. So it's just our culture. It's the way we were raised. Some people weren't, like, I'll give you something to cry about. Why are you crying? Your life is, kids' lives are so easy. Like, it's And again, I'm a lymphedema therapist. I'm not a mental health provider. So this is all just speaking from my own personal experience and no formal education. But what we see as meditation teachers is a lot of people they'll want to start meditation and sit there, and you can get like 3 breaths and then wake up, open your eyes and you're like, oh, that's so relaxing. Like the breathing exercises we got through today, so relaxing because it's very short, time limited. But once you really take a step into, I really want to meet myself and be more inside my body, some things that were pushed down because you weren't in a space where you could feel them, are now feeling like they can finally be expressed. Like when you talk to someone and then you're friends on the surface, and then you break in and then you form this real friendship, and then they're willing to share their deep, dark secrets with you that you never knew that happened to them because they gained your trust. So you're gaining your trust. And This is just me as a meditation teacher. I'm not a mental health professional.
I think it's your sensitivity to these issues only enhances and makes more effective the work that you do, the hands-on work you do that makes a difference in the lives of so many patients. And I want to thank the patients and the clinicians that showed up tonight for this really valuable conversation. I highly recommend the book, Mindful Strategies for Adult Clients with Adverse Childhood Experiences. There are exercises in this book, opportunities to be mindful. It really is a wonderful handbook and so packed with research. So thank you for pouring your heart and soul into this project. Thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you.
Oh, Judith says she talks about stress release, and tears are God's stress relief valve. Very good. Link to the book. I promise you, I should have had that at the ready.
So it's available on Amazon. It's in both paperback and Kindle. So you can search for it on the title. You can search for it on my name.
And we will also send each of you a link to that as well when we send you the link to this replay. Judith is all the way from Australia. Carolyn says thank you, and so many other thank yous coming in. We appreciate you all, and I especially appreciate you, Kathleen. Everybody have a wonderful night, and we'll see you during an upcoming roundtable or another educational event here at Lympha Press. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See ya.